Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Great to be here with you this morning. And thank you for joining me today for the delivery of Ontario's 2023-2024 first quarter finances. From the very beginning, our government has been transparent with taxpayers, providing updates on Ontario's finances every 90 days. Today's report provides the first update to Ontario's economic and fiscal outlook for this fiscal year. D'entrée de jeu, notre gouvernement a fait preuve de transparence envers les contribuables, faisant le point sur les finances de l'Ontario tous les 90 jours. Le rapport d'aujourd'hui présente le premier aperçu des perspectives économiques et financières pour l'exercice 2023-2024. This report also includes new critical investments we have made to support people and businesses across the province since the release of our 2023 budget, Building a Strong Ontario. Ontario continues to face heightened economic uncertainties and geopolitical risks. In spite of these ongoing uncertainties and risks, Ontario's economy and people have remained resilient. Ontario's real gross domestic product, or GDP, increased by 1% in the first calendar quarter of 2023. Growth that is largely supported by higher exports and household spending. As of the first quarter, Ontario's real GDP was 4.9% above the pre-pandemic level in the fourth quarter of 2019. And while inflationary pressures have eased slightly, the impact of the Bank of Canada's interest rate policies increases will continue to weigh on many people in Ontario and on our economic outlook for the remainder of the year. I've said it before, and I will say it again. Ontario is not immune to any potential economic slowdown. This is why our 2023 budget, Building a Strong Ontario, released in March, maintained a responsible, prudent fiscal plan with targeted supports. We will continue to take a targeted approach to our plan that supports businesses and people today while building a strong fiscal foundation for future generations. And our balanced approach has not gone unnoticed. Following the 2023 Ontario budget, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and DBRS Morningstar have all improved Ontario's credit ratings on a positive outlook, and Fitch confirmed Ontario's credit rating with a stable outlook. Today's report provides updated information about the evolution of Ontario's economic and fiscal outlook, primarily as of June 30th, 2023, and since the 2023 Ontario budget for the 23-24 fiscal year. This update shows the province's 23-24 deficit is projected to remain unchanged from the outlook of $1.3 billion published in the 2023 Ontario budget. Revenues in 23-24 are projected to be $204.4 billion, a number that is also largely unchanged from the forecast in the 2023 budget. Overall program expense in 23-24 is projected to be $190.6 billion, and again, this is largely unchanged from the 2023 Ontario budget. New investments, primarily funded through existing contingencies, include supports for Ontario's manufacturing sector, funding for policing and anti-crime initiatives, as well as municipal infrastructure investments. I look forward to delivering an update on our plan and the next economic and fiscal update as a part of the 2023 Fall Economic Statement later this year. J'attends avec impatience de faire le point sur notre plan et de déposer le prochain énoncé économique de l'automne 2023 plus tard cette année. Today's update shows that our government's targeted, responsible approach is working to build and support growing communities across Ontario. It is the right plan to navigate these uncertain times. Ontario's population is growing, jobs are being created, and we are attracting investments in the communities across the province. C'est le plan idéal pour traverser cette période d'incertitude. La population de l'Ontario augmente. Des emplois sont créés et nous attirons des investissements partout en Ontario. To support these growing communities, our government will continue with its plan to build critical infrastructure in the economy, train and recruit skilled workers, and provide people with the services they need. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Minister, are you concerned that this relatively positive news is going to be lost by the Greenbelt land swap controversy? You had hundreds of protesters at your constituency office in Pickering yesterday. Is there a danger that the government's problems on the Greenbelt are going to overshadow the relatively stable and positive news here?
I don't think so. I think that the people of Ontario recognize that, we've had almost, our population's grown by almost 500,000 people. They're coming to this great province. I think that's a great thing. But we've got to continue not just building houses, which is an important part, but the schools, the healthcare, the roads, the public transit, the long-term care, the broadband. We've got an unprecedented infrastructure challenge in front of us as we welcome newcomers to this province, as we train and retrain skilled workers and workers right across the province. So I think this is just a part of the overall necessity for us to build the economy of the future.
Aren't you concerned, though, that, this is overshadowing the government's message on other things? The report last week was devastating. Bonnie Lysyk, who you guys used to lionize when she was when in opposition, now she's more of a pain in the butt to you guys, but she delivered a very, very tough report, makes the government look really bad. I think if you ask 100 people on Yonge Street right now what they thought, about 75 of them would say, Jesus, that doesn't sound good.
Rob, you want to know what, when I talked to 100 people in my riding, where, as you mentioned, there were some people out there demonstrating and obviously pursuing their democratic right, a lot of them talked to me about the affordability in this province. They talk to me the high cost of rent. They talk about the high cost of the dream of owning a home. My riding has a lot of newcomers, so I talk to them all the time. The people on the street, the 100 people that I talk to, say, build. We need schools. We need infrastructure. We need health care. We need public transit. We need houses built. We need a place to live. So that's what I hear, and that's why we're going to continue on our plan to build.
You say you don't think anybody cares that the process was flawed? The AG's findings that there was a bias toward powerful developers? You're saying nobody cares about that?
I didn't say nobody cares. What I did say is that we're going to continue our focus to make sure that we continue our responsibility to make sure the infrastructure is there. With regard to the report, as the Premier and Minister Clark have said, the 14 recommendations are
15.
out of 15 are important to pursue, and they've committed to follow those recommendations.
Why not follow the 15th, though? That's actually a critical one, to actually acknowledge the process was flawed and to look at it and reconsider potentially. Why not follow that one and say to voters, okay, we made a mistake, we're going to revisit this, we're going to make sure we made the right decision?
With 500,000 people coming to this province last year, and who knows what number that'll be this year, we have an absolute responsibility to the people of Ontario to continue to build houses. There's no question. So we've acknowledged, and the Premier and Minister Clark have acknowledged the process could have been better, without question, accepted those recommendations. But we're going to continue to move forward because it's an absolute crisis that we're in. We're in a housing crisis. And I don't think anyone wants to stand in front of you a year from now, 2 years from now, and say that we didn't get the job done.
Minister, the largest section that was removed is in your riding. You've been there since 2018. You've had powerful, prominent positions within this government. Did any developer reach out to you to say, I want that land removed?
They didn't, I haven't sat down with those developers in terms of talking about removing those lands. Certainly something that, but the mayor at the time and the council brought up, and many people brought up the fact that they've been advocating for over a couple of decades to get those lands developed. In fact, there was I believe, a commitment to start that process, and then according to these mayors, it wasn't real science, it was political science that those lands were removed. So this is something that the municipality has been advocating for a long time. I'm sure the developers have been advocating for that for a long time, the people who own that land, of which I don't know the full list, but of course there must be many. But what I've heard consistently from the council, from the mayor, the previous mayors, is that, Pickering, along with a lot of other communities, is bursting at the seams. People are moving in. And let's remember, that land is, of course, between Finch and the 407, right next door to the largest city in Canada. So they want to get those houses built.
So at what point did you find out that a significant portion of land in your riding was going to be removed from the Greenbelt? And what did you say? Because I think a lot of people would say the finance minister, somebody who has tremendous power when it comes to the government, influence as well, would have said, hey, what's going on here? How did you select the land? So what level of involvement did you have when it came to the land in your riding to say, how did this process figure out this land?
I was briefed the day of the cabinet, and of course it wasn't a surprise to me because, as I said, the mayors have been, and the people of Pickering and many on council had been advocating for years, well before my time as well.
Did you agree to the removal of the deference route?
I support the government and I support the initiative to build at least 50,000 homes on the Greenbelt. I support that we've got to build a minimum of 1.5 million homes. And I'm concerned because if we don't get that done, it's going to put pressure, continue to put pressure on a range of affordable housing, the homelessness. We've got refugees coming to this province. We've been there to support that. I sat down with the regional chair of Durham on Friday, and he talked about the challenges with regard to refugees and people coming to Durham. And he's focused on Ottawa because he knows the province is there, and we've been supporting supportive housing, for example, in Durham and right across the province. So this is something that I think is absolutely necessary to continue to build homes in the province.
Minister, just to correct the record a little bit, Pickering voted against this latest plan. They reversed their previous position. Durham Region says they weren't ready. They had no idea. They have other commitments, infrastructure commitments, that will meet their targets, by the way. There's all this land in Seaton that no one's building on yet. They could build instead. And Pickering agreed to keep this land agricultural forever when it was sold back to the tenants. And then they reneged on that. So the idea that that was just fake science or something, there was actually a three-party consensus, a process that took decades. That land had been earmarked for agriculture for years. Why do you just dismiss all that and say, but let's just build houses on it? There are lots of other places to build houses.
As I said, the previous mayor, the current mayor, were always very supportive, and obviously they were the ones that came to the public to say that they supported building that. And I think the mayor made a statement last week and said that now that the decision's been made, we got to make sure that infrastructure is there. And I want to be very clear about that for the people of Pickering and the people of Ontario, that the infrastructure, the community benefits will be paid billions of dollars for the infrastructure, the schools, the community centers, the roads, etc., that are going to be necessary to have the infrastructure are going to be paid by those same developers, and they'll work with the independent provincial land facilitator and the community, the city, the current council, the current mayor, to get that done.
So you're saying that the $6 billion in land uplift that we're talking about here, according to the Auditor General, not my numbers, that's going to be paid back to taxpayers. So that actually is money that really should be the taxpayers' money. This was land that was sold back on the condition that it stay farms at that price, and now it's been magically turned into developable land, and all that money is going to someone else. So you're saying that process, which, by the way, we don't have any numbers, it's all behind closed doors, you're saying that the amount of money the developers put into the infrastructure will pay us back for that $6 billion?
They will pay, private interests who are going to develop those homes are going to pay for the infrastructure there. That's absolutely a condition of it. Well, certainly billions. I don't know how much. They got to pay for the cost of building.
How much? So how can we evaluate?
Jeff, they have to pay for the cost of the building, and one step at a time. But we've made it very clear that as part of the putting those lands out of the Greenbelt, that there has to be a commitment to pay for that infrastructure. And we've also made it clear that if they don't get it done, start the process and get shovels in the ground by 2025, then there'll be a process to put those lands back into the Greenbelt.
Minister, you're projecting a deficit, again, unchanged from the budget. It seems like every time you put a number out there, the FAO says, no, that's not right, it's not nearly as bad as that. We've done this dance very recently where they found a little surplus in Q4. Is everything working okay at the FAO? Are they filling their mandate of providing some transparency, or is it misleading? Does something need to change?
Well, I think with regard to the FAO, you have to recognize that they use a completely different methodology, one that we can't, that's their methodology, that they use unaudited numbers, they use unconsolidated numbers, like they don't include schools and school boards or colleges or hospitals in their numbers. Those numbers, for example, were done in April. There's a lot of post-year-end transactions that are done. Those all come out in the audited statements, and those audited statements are due by the end of September. So I'll be up in front of you again to be able to address the specific numbers for 2022-23 based on the audited results.
And then obviously in response to the latest FAO report, opposition parties gave you a lot of flack for underspending, citing that nobody can afford anything. In your estimation, is the fact that people are struggling a reason for more fiscal prudence from government or less?
What we're doing is, I believe you can be fiscally responsible, invest in infrastructure, and support workers and families in Ontario, and we've demonstrated that. And we've also been very transparent, and I've been out all the time talking about the numbers. And we've got substantive investments that we put through the 22-23 year, and of course in the budget for 23-24. I'll give you an example. Healthcare, we increased by some $6 billion to meet the healthcare needs. We've increased the education budget. We've increased the infrastructure spend because, as I said, we've got to get things done. So we're going to continue. We put money, obviously, as part of Q1, we've put more money into crime, like the auto theft. We put almost $50 million additional money on top of the policing money that we put in place. So that's part of governing. I'm committed to continuing our plan to invest in this province, to build things and support our workers. And I would add just one more thing with regard to the economy. These are uncertain times. No one, including the FAO or anyone here, has a perfect crystal ball. So it's important that we stick to our plan.
What changes are you contemplating for green bonds? It mentions that in here.
Well, we are working on the green bond framework, which I think the last time it was updated was about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's time for a refresh. So we're working on upgrading and taking the framework that we issue green bonds, and that's a work that's ongoing. Let me also say that we've issued a cumulative amount over the years of $15 billion in green bonds. There's no other province, or in fact the government of Ottawa, Canada, that's issued as many green bonds. In fact, that's more, I understand, than all of them combined, including the federal government. And let me say this as well with regard to green bonds. One of the factors, for example, that Volkswagen said that they picked Ontario. They could have gone lots of different places. Was the fact that we have a green grid, that we've been committed to, greenifying our economy, electrifying our economy. And so capital decisions are being made, and we are raising, on behalf of the people of Ontario, finances through green bonds, and it's worked very well.
En français, peut-être, personnellement, êtes-vous à l'aise, êtes-vous confortable avec la manière dont les changements à la ceinture de verdure ont été réalisés, sachant qu'il y en a beaucoup dans votre circonscription?
Et comme le Premier ministre a dit, le ministre Clark, il y a absolument des choses qu'on pouvait faire différemment, améliorer sans doute. Alors les 14 recommandations sont cela, et on va suivre les recommandations, les 14.
Minister, I was speaking with David Crombie last week, former mayor of Toronto,
Great guy.
Former federal Conservative MP. He said he believes there are a lot of really good people in cabinet and caucus, and that surely there are some who are concerned about the optics of what has happened to the Greenbelt. And he wishes that some good people would speak up. What are you hearing around the table? Are there some concerns about how this has been handled and if this should be reconsidered?
Well, as the Premier and Minister Clark said, you know, the process could have been definitely done better. And I think we all accept that, Cynthia. So that's why those 14 recommendations, I've read the report, are good governance to be able to pursue. But we won't relent in our decision to build houses in Ontario.
So it sounds like you're speaking from the same playbook as Minister Clark and the Premier. Are you being given lines to repeat so that you stay on message?
Cynthia, I spend a lot of time talking to people in Pickering and Uxbridge and right across this province, and I can tell you, just about everywhere I go, they talk about housing. Housing is in crisis, and it is a supply issue.
There's lots of land, Minister, with respect. There's lots of land. Even the housing analysis done by your government concluded there's enough land to build on without opening up the Greenbelt. And yes, there's a housing crisis, but there isn't a land crisis.
Well, at the time, the task force reported a year and a half ago, we didn't have the population growth numbers. I mean, 500,000 people, that's a significant amount of people. If you think about Pickering again, that's going to support a lot of new homes. And it's not just front door, back door. It's affordable and attainable. At least 10% have to be affordable. And it's not just that. You know, if you look at Pickering, the announcement was made a couple of weeks ago that 10 new towers are going up at the Pickering Town Centre, 6,000 units right beside a GO train station. So it's not either or, it's and.
What's the definition of affordable housing? If 10% of the 50,000 homes will be affordable, what's the price point going to be?
Well, that's all to be worked out, and I'm sure as these lands are brought forward for approval, because the council and the provincial land facilitator will have to outline that specifically. But make no mistake that this government is committed to ensuring that affordable housing is there.
So I just want to switch gears for a second. Toronto's still struggling with its budget shortfall. Is there any more money coming from the province to support it? Have you had conversations with the new mayor, Olivia Chow?
Not had any conversations, and you know, I would point out that in the federal minister's budget, 23-24, there's no money, any more money for Toronto. You know, and so you know, we've been there for Toronto. We've put in billions of dollars to support Toronto. In fact, in my last budget, Toronto asked for $48 million for supportive housing. We gave them $48 million for supportive housing. I increased the supportive housing 40%, from $500 million to $700 million. And we're going to continue to support people right across this province, not just for front door, back door type of houses, condos, affordable housing, income targeted housing, supportive housing. Because it's really all hands on deck. It's not just the municipality, it's the federal government. The province has been there, and you know, I would just ask the mayor to look at some things like you know, renaming Dundas Street. Is that the priority that she wants to fund? And if they've got money to do that, then that's the will of council. So you know, that's something I'll leave to the mayor, and I'm sure we'll sit down at some point. So thank you very much, everyone.